/ New England PTQ scene. I mean, he's been around for forever, and a name that a lot of people don't recognize, but a very skilled Magic player.
I think he did really well in a team PT, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know if he made Sunday, but again, he's just a lot of good Grand Prix and Pro Tour finishes over the years. Very skilled.
Well, we've got his Mono Black Devotion here against Black Green Devotion. Lax is going to abrupt decay that pack rat. Does not want to let that get out of control. Here's a Thoughtseize, so we'll see what Ari's working with right away here. A Nightveil Spectre, a Gray Merchant, an Ultimate Price, a Desecration Demon, a Thoughtseize, and an abrupt decay. No third land for Mr. Lax. He's going to look to run some off.
And Ari is playing a slightly different build of Black Green Devotion. He does have both Nightveil Spectre and Lifebane Zombie in his main deck. Don't see that frequently. The removal package is a little bit varied, but otherwise this is sort of the classic Black Green list that we've been seeing a lot of.
Sigrist does have Lifebane Zombie over Nightveil Spectre here, so he's going to take his time with his Thoughtseize because Lax has a pretty gosh darn good hand right now. Nightveil Spectre is obviously a problem, but if Sigrist has removal spell, it's not that big of a deal. The question is, does he want to commit a turn and actually killing that thing? You can make an argument for taking Abrupt Decay, but Abrupt Decay or Ultimate Price to kill a pack rat if that's what Sigrist's plan is. So a lot of options here. You see he's going to consult his hand. He does have a pack rat there. He also has a land to play as well. Decisions here from the Mono Black Devotion player.
And the backup removal spell that Ari has for pack rat here, both Abrupt Decay and Ultimate Price obviously take care of it, complicates this quite a bit. Otherwise there would just be a very easy hole for Mike to open up here.
He's really thinking about this Thoughtseize here. Again, we know he has a Swampy as a pack rat. Not sure the rest of the contents, but he is giving this a long look because, of course, when you take a card with Thoughtseize here, it really just kind of carves out the rest of the way the game's going to go. Yeah.
The game's pretty easy to play here if Ari's missing land drops. What Mike has to do is figure out what the sequence is in the event that Ari draws lands.
Oh. Sigrist is going to take the Nightveil Spectre. He's going to record the contents of the hand. Again, a Gray Merchant, an Ultimate Price, a Thoughtseize, a Desecration Demon, and an Abrupt Decay are the 5 cards that Ari Lax is left with. We don't know the top card, neither does he, as he played a Temple on the early turn of the game. Sigrist is going to play a Swamp here. He's going to follow up with a Pack Rat, so that thing is dead on arrival. We'll see if Lax is able to draw a land or not. He's going to cast a Thoughtseize. I think he drew a land.
If he's casting Thoughtseize, he certainly drew a land.
There's a Lifebane Zombie. This isn't going to take it. Lifebane Zombie is left along with a land. He'll play Overgrown Tomb untapped. Going to keep his hand face up here. He's just trying to figure out which removal spell I think he wants to use to take care of the pack rat. Actually, is he just going to pass the turn back? No.
No way.
No way is he just going to pass the turn back. Now, this is the interesting decision if you use Price or Decay here. Decay he wants to save because of a Connections, which he feels like he's very soft to. However, what just happened is if he draws a Desecration Demon, this ends up bad, and that's exactly what happened. Alex is going to top deck another land, and he's going to play a Desecration Demon of his own. So back and forth we go.
Yeah, exactly correct. If Ari there trying to keep an insurance policy, risking Desecration Demon off the top, Sigrist has it. Now, Mike's still with, or Ari's still with a lot of tools to play with here, but that was the worst case scenario there for Ari.
A very quick trade there as Lax was able to draw another land. Trade Desecration Demons here. Lax looks like he may fire up the old Mutavault. Offer up a trade here with that and the Lifebane Zombie. Any interest for Mike to make a trade here? This is a very interesting attack.
That Gray Merchant isn't that threatening, but a 2/4 body is still not bad here for Ari. It's a pretty attractive spot to trade, it feels like. Yeah,
a trade is going to be made. Lax is going to play Temple of Malady. Taking the top card, and it looks like that was a trade that Ari was more than happy to make. Going to pass the turn back here. He had the answer to Lifebane Zombie in his hand with the Abrupt Decay. Here is the Lifebane Zombie. Will he Abrupt Decay this, or is he going to keep waiting? It looks like he's going to keep waiting. Just pass the turn back. No rush to cast that. Sigrist is going to attack here for 3. Will it Lax Decay? He will not. Still waiting for maybe an Underworld Connections. It kind of plays out the way that Lax has been playing the entire game, which is I'm not going to cast this Abrupt Decay unless I absolutely need to.
And Ari has a 2/4 in his hand. That's black, so he can block the Lifebane Zombie when he draws the 5th land. So no reason to use the Abrupt Decay right now. He can afford to take a hit or 2.
Swamp there for Sigrist before passing the turn back over to Lax. Lax going to draw his card for the turn. There's a land. This will probably be the Gray Merchant, and it is. We'll see if Sigrist has a removal spell for that with the ability on the stack. That is the case. So here's a Devour Flesh. Lax is going to gain some life. He's going to go up to 15. He would have gained 2 anyway. So going to pass the turn back over to Sigrist, who's playing the top of his deck. He's going to attack for 3. Lax is going to go down to 12. All Mike can do is just pass the turn back. Let's see if Lax has another Gray Merchant, maybe a creature. Desecration Demon isn't so bad. Sigrist is going to untap. He'll take a draw. It looks like Sigrist may have picked up a copy of Underworld Connections. He did, and that's the exact reason that Lax has been holding that Abrupt Decay the entire time. He will draw a card, will Sigrist. We'll see if he's going to play a land at this point, maybe try to attack through this Desecration Demon. But you see the patience here from Lax, not using the Decay.
Game 1 is all about Underworld Connections and Pack Rat. Those are the only cards that really matter. The Abrupt Decay in Lax's hand gives him a ton of insurance, and so
Sigrist is going to attack here. This smells like a Bile Blight to me. There's a Swamp. There's your Bile Blight. But I think if you're Lax, you're okay with that exchange because, one, I've got your connections taken care of. I'm going to play a Scry land, put the top card to the bottom, decay that, pass the turn back. So now you're playing off the top of your deck. And oh boy. A Connections comes rolling off, and Lax just put a Decay to the bottom. A really nice top deck there from Mike. He'll play a Mutavault, pass the turn back. Lax is going to play a Temple of Malady. He'll take a look at the top card of his deck. He's going to leave it on top. All he can do is pass back.
Try to scry that Abrupt Decay back to the top of his deck.
Yeah, yep. And, you know, it makes you wonder if you're supposed to keep that on top when you got your opponent out of cards. The worst thing they can draw is probably Connections at that point, or maybe a Pack Rat, which Abrupt Decay would have taken care of.
Well, he's also susceptible to Desecration. The problem is that drawing a reactive card and saying go is really rough in the mono black mirror match because there's so many Thought Seizes floating around.
Sure.
Too. So that's another factor once you get to this stage of the game.
Temple of Silence here for Sigrist. He wants to scry first before he activates Underworld Connections. That top card is going to go to the bottom. He's going to activate that right now. Down to 15 goes Mike. Mystery card coming. Mutavault's into the red zone. Lax is going to go down to 10. Lax very interested in drawing his card for the turn. I think you can see why. A Pack Rat with one card in his hand is pretty good.
Not a shabby draw.
Thought Seize for Mike is the draw. He has a Temple of Silence in his hand as well. We might see him play the Temple before activating Connections again here.
Yeah, he really needs to find one of his remaining Bile Blight. And sooner rather than later.
So he's going to put the top card to the bottom. We're going to see a Connections activation down to 14 goes Sigrist. Mystery card. Does not look like the Bile Blight. He's going to fire up a Mutavault, get into the red zone. Lax with no interest in blocking. He's going to go down to 8. This is a follow-up. This feels like a demon, and it is timely there for Sigrist. Lax is going to discard a card. A rat token is going to come into play. He's got some 2/2 Pack Rats, but he needs a removal spell, I think, right now.
And Desecration Demon definitely gives Mike the opportunity to race here.
Yeah. It also just changes the way that Lax has to play the game.
You can try to hold down the fort a little bit with these Pack Rats, but that's a game that favors Mike in the long term.
Sigrist with a Mutavault as the draw. Already has a Mutavault in play. Connections at the ready. The other card right now is a Thought Seize. So some back and forth top decks. But at the same time, when you're playing in a discard heavy mirror like this and a mirror of a lot of reactive spells, that's typically how the games go.
People get empty-handed, and then the first person with a big draw is the favorite. I mean, it goes like that in the mono black mirror match very frequently.
Sigrist with the Connections activation is going to go down to 13. Now, it's pretty easy to say paying a life for a card is a pretty good deal at this point in the game. You've seen another Life Bane zombie in his hand, but again, Pack Rat can close the game out pretty quickly as Lax is going to go down to 2. No interest. Not going to try to play around Grey Merchant. I actually like this because, hey, he's not beating Grey Merchant now anyway.
No, the life swing is just too much here, and Hari doesn't have much of a long-term plan against this Desecration Demon, so he needs to build up a board.
Pack Rat comes rolling off the top there for Sigrist. He's going to put that into play. Lax is going to discard his card, put a Pack Rat into play, and he's going to concede the game. Mike Sigrist with a timely Underworld Connections top deck is able to steal this game from Ari Lax. Mono Black Devotion up a game over Black Green Devotion. We'll take a look at the sideboards. You've got Lax in front of you. What's he got?
4 copies of Duress, a Life Bane Zombie, 2 Freakus Cures, 2 Dark Betrayals, a Golgari Charm, 2 copies of Erebos, God of the Dead, 2 Doom Blades, and a Devour Flesh. Most likely, we're going to be bringing in the 2 copies of Erebos, God of the Dead, the 4 copies of Duress, and the 2 copies of Dark Betrayal. So important to fight over the opposing discard spells and Underworld Connection, so I think you want more copies of Duress. Dark Betrayal, of course, very efficient removal spell, and Erebos, God of the Dead, another supplement to Underworld Connections.
On Sigrist's side here, he's got a Whip of Erebos, an additional copy of Bile Blight, a Pithing Needle, Read the Bones, a Freakus Cure, a Drought and Sorrow. Quite a few one-ofs. Don't see that very often. 2 Dark Betrayals, 2 Erebos, God of the Dead, 2 Doomblade, and 3 copies of Duress. We oftentimes see the Duresses come in here, so that's pretty much the industry standard, along with the Erebos is now in the Dark Betrayals, so that's pretty easy. 7. These one-ofs are interesting. The Whip is kind of interesting. The Bile Blight is kind of interesting. Needle's interesting on Connections and or Pack Rat when you don't have one, so I could see an argument for that. You could also make the argument for Read the Bones and Freakus Cure.
I like Whip in the mirror match quite a bit, because what often happens is Pack Rat is the first thing that has to go.
Yep.
And you can get into spots where you play Whip, reanimate a Pack Rat, make a token, and then all of a sudden you have the ball rolling again.
And you're back to playing that game again.
Yeah, and it's also very good alongside Grey Merchants and all this kind of stuff. I wouldn't want a ton of copies of Whip in my deck, but I think 1 copy is pretty high upside. While
these players do finish sideboarding, we'll have game number 2 underway in just a moment. We do want to bring to your attention Brian Kibler lounging. You know, Brian, don't make that noise. Come on now. You guys are good friends, right?
Yeah, I get to see Brian Kibler lounge all the time.
Well, you can see it right now, too. There he is. There's BK. His playmat is available at StarCityGames.com, $24.99, available for purchase. If you guys would like one, you can certainly do that.
Not an iota of shame on that face.
He's a happy man. I'd be happy, too.
Yeah, he's pretty thrilled.
You can find out exactly how this playmat came to be on his website, bmkgaming.com as well. And again, this playmat is available for purchase. This has been a big hit in the Magic community.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah, people are big fans of the Star City Games, picked it up, and honestly, they've been selling like crazy. So if you guys want to get your hands on a Brian Kibler playmat, and who doesn't, based off of that picture, head over to StarCityGames.com right now. You guys can pick one up for yourself, as we will cut back to the match here, as both these players will be playing in just a moment here in the Black-Green Devotion versus Mono-Black Devotion matchup. You know, the green splash in this matchup doesn't feel like it plays a huge role. It's definitely important, but you could also say that it's important that you don't take damage from your own lands, and a lot of your lands come to play untapped.
I think I would probably err on the side of wanting to be the green deck slightly, because Abrupt Decay gives you an out to Underworld Connections game 1, but this is pretty small stuff. The mana and the damage is a real thing. Randomly, the Black Devotion matchup does come down to damage racing or life totals matter, because Grey Merchant hits or getting hits by Mutavaults over the course of the game, Thoughtseize and Underworld Connections, there's a lot of cards that tax your life total, so it's not free paying those points of damage. It matters in the mirror match. Even though it has the feel of a control mirror match, the life total does matter.
Arguably the best deck in the format, kind of squaring off right now, these Black Devotion decks. Though, you know, again, we have seen different results over the Open Series about decks that are actually winning the tournaments in top 8 numbers. The format is a little bit more diverse than it may seem. And even though Lax lost that first game, I will say that, you know, I like the way that he played it. I like all of his decision-making processes there. You know, alternate pricing, the pack rat instead of Abrupt Decay, saving Abrupt Decay for Underworld Connections. It just didn't end up working out. But I mean, those things happen.
Yeah. That's how this mirror match goes. Again, a lot of it is just what comes off the top.
Well, Ari's got a really good hand for a sideboard game. 3 copies of Underworld Connections, 2 Thoughtseizes, a Temple of Malady as the grip. Golgari Guildgate is in play. Best of luck with this Thoughtseize, Mike. Gonna take a Thoughtseize.
Yeah. I mean, the Underworld Connections are kind of on diminishing returns. He runs out of lands to put them on or whatever, so selecting Thoughtseize there makes some sense.
Black's going to play Temple of Malady, of course, looking for his 3rd land. He leaves that on top. He's going to cast a Thoughtseize. We'll see Sigrist's grip. He's got to read the bones. He's got a Bile Blight. He has a Pack Rat and 3 lands in his hand. I wonder what you take. I think it almost has to be Pack Rat.
Well, if he has an answer to it, yeah. If he has no answer to it, he has to take it.
Yeah, I think
pretty
that's pretty
straightforward.
Hero's Downfall, the draw here for Sigrist. He's just going to play a land past the turn back.
And Ari just playing face up here, which is pretty nice.
Apparently we have a tweet here from Brian, as Ari's going to play a Underworld Connections. Quote, seeing myself up on the SCG website is weird enough, but seeing Cedric plugging me on the SCG website is borderline creepy.
That's hard to believe. I think being on the website is creepier than being plugged.
It's tough to say. It's tough to say.
Because we're all human beings. We support each other. That's us talking positively about each other. Maybe we should be doing more of that anyway. But being on the website is, I think, weirder.
You know what that means? If I'm talking about you, that's how you know you made it.
Yeah.
Not when you're selling your own playmat. If I'm talking about you, you're welcome, Brian. Read the bones here from Sigrist. He's going to set up his draw for the next couple of turns. You saw Abrupt Decay take care of the Underworld Connections.
So it looks like he's looking at another Pack Rat here. So he is reaching the point of the game where he has the opportunity to go Pack Rat with 3 lands up and make a rat right away.
Yeah, we've seen that before. That's almost, you know, that's almost like a game plan in this matchup, honestly. I mean, playing on turn 2 is just basically, you know, you have to have it right now. Removal spell is a little sub game, but a lot of times you see Mono Black, you know, they trade discard spells and all that stuff, and then they play it on turn 5 with 3 mana available to start the Pack Rat, you know, get that ball rolling again. Here's another Thoughtseize. Hero's Downfall, 2 connections. Going to take the Hero's Downfall, will Mike, before passing the turn back over to Lax, who does have an active Underworld Connections. He's going to pay 1, we think, and he will. Going to play a Mutavault. Let's see what the follow-up is going to be. Another Connections. Now, again, you know, I like where this game is going for Lax because he has his card advantage engines online. Got to be worried of that life total. Yes, he's at 16 right now, but he does have to definitely take care of it because of that card.
This is the big risk here. You can lose to just random points of damage adding up.
Yeah. Mutavault hits, stuff like that.
Still, Ari is comfortably in the driver's seat. I mean, he's the one with the enormous resource edge.
I have to imagine, like, this is exactly where he would want to be. And a great merchant of his own is great, and that pack rat with 2 Mutavaults in play is pretty darn good, too.
Yeah. But it is, you are correct. Being mindful of his life total is really important here.
Thoughtseize here for Mike, the draw. Also has a Temple of Silence hanging out over there as well.
Once again, Magic players, if your name is Dan...
Just really interesting, like, Ari's hand, you know, when he got Thoughtseize, 2 Thoughtseizes, 3 Underworld Connections, another land, it was just a scry land to help bridge the gap to the 3rd land. There's no world he's mulliganing that hand, even though there's multiple connections there, and as you mentioned, you know, additional connections have diminishing returns. You can't mulligan, that hand's too good.
No way. It's not, you know, yes, the second connections is not as good as the first one, but the second connections is still plenty fine right now.
And because he does have Grey Merchants in his deck, it all kind of adds up in his favor. Plus, you got Pack Rat to discard additional ones, so it's almost like this deck is really good or something.
There's a lot of synergies. Pack Rat and the fact that you have a draw step is a really nice synergy.
Tough combo to beat.
You can also draw other cards with effects that allow you to draw cards. That's a really good synergy. Grey Merchant and Sweet Permanence. That's a sweet combo.
Seems tough. Sigrist going to, looks like, take care of that with a Bile Blight. Of course, Lack's not going to activate. In for 2 we go. Going to pay a life to draw a card here. See if he's going to do it again or not. May have been looking for a removal spell there.
It's pretty high upside
Now
if
here's
he finds one.
Here's a Thoughtseize. Wonder what he nabs. Looks like a Pack Rat. There's a Connections. I think that all Lax is looking for right now is probably just to balance life total with the Grey Merchant.
Grey Merchant, even Erebos, just some stable source of blocking would be really valuable right now.
Oh, he sees at 9. There's a Thoughtseize going down to 7. Takes care of Hero's Downfall. Any follow-up to be had? An Overgrown Tomb? Attacking. We are aggressive. That feel aggressive to you?
That's a pretty good spot. I don't think he wants to chump block just yet. He may start blocking with the Mutavaults the following turn.
I kind of like I mean, maybe the idea of trying to double block this Grey Merchant is a bad idea.
No, I think that he can probably just chump block, try to bridge the gap to the point where he first finds one of his big spells.
Okay. He goes down to 5. See if he activates Connections. Going to go down to 4. Yes, he will. Again, he needs to find a Grey Merchant. If he finds a Grey Merchant, I feel like driver's seat is where we are.
It's easy from there for sure.
Yeah. The problem now is if Mike finds a Grey Merchant of his own, you're in trouble. You're basically dead. And even though Ari has 2 Mutavaults, more cards, has had Connections all game, that's not the look of a confident Magic player right now.
No, I mean, he needs one big draw, and then he probably pulls ahead for forever. This is one of those big draws, but...
And there's Erebos that you did mention. Here comes Mutavault. He's not afraid. Into the red zone he goes.
Now he's got to sweat a Grey Merchant.
Jeez. That made
it?
That was actually, okay.
Oh, that was
Devour Flesh. They look the same. I thought it was a Grey Merchant too. And Devour Flesh right now is, oddly enough, not that great. Whew. That looked just like a Grey Merchant to me too.
Yeah, Ari can either fire up a Mutavault or just happily sacrifice his Erebos and gate a bunch of life.
Yeah. If you're rooting for Ari Lax, thankfully it was not a Grey Merchant that Sigrist drew. And all Mike can do now is pass the turn back. Lax is going to go down a little bit lower to 3. Does he want to go down to 2? He will. The thought process here is I was dead to Grey Merchant before. I'm still dead to it. I just need to find a Grey Merchant. And here's Devour Flesh to take care of the Erebos. Quick untap here. See a Dark Betrayal over there in Lax's hand now as well. He's got these Mutavaults ready to go. Dark Betrayal is going to take that thing out of the way, clear the way for these Mutavaults.
Lower the devotion count too, a little insurance against the Grey Merchant.
And just pass the turn back over to Sigrist, who will draw a card. He's going to cast the Thoughtseize. This is an information Thoughtseize. Show you connections in 2 lands, and he'll concede the game. Ari Lack's going to win game number 2 here against Mike Sigrist. Black-Green Devotion tied up against Mono-Black Devotion. Interesting game there.
Yeah, it's not, I don't know if the games are necessarily the most compelling Magic all the time, because it often lands with just the first person to draw a big relevant spell wins the game. But there is some weird jockeying for position, and a lot of times the turn 1 Thoughtseize sculpts out the whole game in the way that it plays out.
Yeah. Just some healthy back and forth there, but again, a really, really nice opening hand there from Lax. And when Sigrist did Thoughtseize him, Lax just kind of shrugged his shoulders and said, yep, basically the nuts, as
Yeah.
it were, 2 Thoughtseizes, 3 connections. Not the actual nuts, but I mean, a really, really good hand.
Yeah, maybe you would trade in the connections for a third land for sure or whatever, but that's pretty close to an ideal hand.
I mean, you've got a temple that can theoretically find the third land, so I'm with you. That's a really, really nice hand, and one that Lax is always going to keep. He's going back to the drawing board here for the sideboard. So we'll see if either player changes anything, and then game 3 will be underway shortly. Been a fun tournament so far. We've seen BBD playing Junk Reanimator. He's sitting at 3-0 right now. Not sure exactly if he's won this round yet or not. Chris Van Meter playing Jund Monsters as usual, even though he has an early loss, given his 8-0 starts in the last 2 tournaments. Danny Jessup playing Mono Blue Devotion, a deck that seems like it's very well positioned for this tournament.
It has been off the radar for so long that I think people no longer have sideboard slots for it. Also, the metagame is opening up a little bit, and Mono Blue Devotion is very good in that world. It's good against most decks. It's very good against most decks.
So we'll see if any of that stuff's able to break through. Haven't seen Burn just yet. Not sure the presence of that deck this weekend. I know there are big fans of that deck, and we had 5 of those in the top 17 last weekend in Indy.
Top 17 is not a thing.
5 of those in the top 17 in Indy.
We had 4 in the top 16. Also, the 17th place deck was Burn.
I can keep saying it and make it a thing.
Right.
You want me to try again?
How many?
5 of those in the top 17 of Indy.
How many copies were in the top 79? While we're on the topic of arbitrary cutoffs.
That's a good question. I'll have to take a look.
Let's go to the tape.
I'll have to take a look. I'm not sure. Look, the only reason the 17th person is relevant because it was Joe Bernal. All right? That's how I know that. A deck that I don't expect Joe Bernal to play either.
No.
And Burn. 17th place, though.
Unlike him. A control player at heart.
Given what he plays in Legacy, which is currently one of my favorite decks in Legacy, all things being told, because there are a million basic lands in his Esper Stoneblade deck. Ended up losing the finals last weekend. But I like his deck a lot.
Me too. I like basic lands in Legacy quite a bit for control decks. Most of the games they lose just feel like Wasteland, Stifle, Bloodboon, something along those lines.
And unlike Goblins, this is a deck with basic lands, like, because basic lands are good. Whereas
Right.
Goblins just kind of has to play mountains, and they're not good.
Yeah.
They're just there.
They're the cost of doing business.
Yeah. And business for Goblins is rather embarrassing at this point.
Business has slowed down.
Sorry, we just need one more good one. That's all.
I don't know if that's the case.
It takes one good Goblin to turn it all around.
I mean, that's the hope, right? But
Goblin named Nemesis.
yeah.
Problem solved. Both players taking a look. Looks like we're happy here. Sigrist has already kept his hand. I think Lax is considering mulliganing.
Yeah. The stare down, pen and mouth combo. The look of a man thinking about sending it back.
It's one of my favorites, actually. For some reason, pen caps taste a lot better when you're playing an intense match of Magic.
I've never had that habit.
I do it all the time. Sometimes I just take the full pen, just right in the mouth.
No.
Sometimes it's not even the cap. I've had a pen explode in my mouth while playing a match of Magic.
That is really rough. Although, I guess it's self-inflicted, so.
I mean, I deserve it. I shouldn't be chewing on a pen.
Right.
What am I doing?
If there was only some way to prevent this outcome.
I couldn't play around it. There was really nothing I could do. How did that pen even get there?
What is that doing there? Why would that have even been there? You know, what was I supposed to do?
So Lax going to go down to 6. In case you were wondering, pen ink, not really the best tasting thing.
Well, that's not the functionality of it.
Yeah.
So it's not something they do a lot of lab work on.
It's not the worst thing I've ever. The worst thing I've tasted was actually, you know the NyQuil gel caps.
Yeah.
I think I've told you this story.
You opened one up.
Yeah, where I thought that the gel caps was just like what they put in the DayQuil bottle. That's not true. That's
No.
not true. It's horrible. Just a couple of lands. There's a Thoughtseize. There's a Connections, an Erebos, and a Bioblight, along with 2 Swamps and a Mutavault.
Pretty tame hand, but at least for Mike, he has 2 backup. He has 2 sources of card advantage, so the Thoughtseize can only do so much damage. And Bioblight protects him, obviously, from Pack Rat.
Yeah. Feels like a Connections, maybe.
Or
It depends on Lax's hand, obviously.
if he has a path for Pack Rat here, then maybe Bioblight's the card.
Yeah. There goes the Connections.
It's almost certainly not Erebos.
Yeah. Maybe you're hoping to peel to take care of Erebos with another discard spell. Just a Mutavault and passing from Mike. Lax going to draw a card. There's a Pack Rat past the turn back. That'll die from Bile Blight, which Lax already knows. Sigrist draws a card. It's an Underworld Connections. Timely, timely, timely. He's real good at that.
Yep.
There's Connections. Pass the turn back. See if Lax has an Abrupt Decay.
I
Or
like
if he just needs the Swamp.
I like leading with the Connections. You get to draw a card this turn, and also your Erebos is safe from duress, but your Connections is not.
Yep.
So that's better sequencing.
Plus now he can draw a card with Connections and then play Erebos if he needs to land. So I like everything about this turn here from Mike.
Ari, on the other hand, not a lot going on.
Not at all. And the thing here for Ari is that one of those lands is the Mutavault, so he can't even, top deck a Swamp and put a Nightveil Spectre in play. He's 2 turns away from doing that.
Can't cast Abrupt Decay even if it's in his hand. I mean, all sorts of trouble.
And there you do see his hand, a couple copies of Nightveil Spectre. I think there's a Desecration Demon hanging out, a Grey Merchant, a Thoughtseize. I mean, powerful cards to be sure. As Lax is about to be Thoughtseize, so we'll actually see the grip. The other card that was missing was an Erebos, but none of these cards actually matter all that much. I'd say the best one is, probably that one.
Yeah. The rest of this hand is so far away from being cast that doesn't really matter very much.
Does not look like the best of mulligans here.
I mean, Ari's hand was perfectly keepable on 6 cards, but for as good as his hand was game 2, he's caught the bad end of it this time.
Yeah. See how Sigrist wants to navigate the rest of this turn. Here's a Swamp. He may fire up a Mutavault. Looks like he's going to. No rush to actually cast Erebos just yet. He knows he's in a pretty good spot, can start chipping away a little bit. Lax looks like he's going to come in with his Mutavault. That'll work.
The only way that Mike gets punished there for attacking with Mutavault is if Ari draws exactly Thoughtseize. And Mike's not even unhappy if Ari draws Thoughtseize that turn instead of a land.
Yeah. A Connections activation will give Mike a Pack Rat. He'll take a draw for the turn. Looks like he picked up a Swamp. Things are going to get real tough here for Lax. Ian Sigrist, top 8 in Grand Prix Richmond this year, playing Affinity. A very accomplished Magic player. Kind of the definition of just a grinder in this area.
Yeah.
Once a healthy amount of PTQs is played on a handful of Pro Tours. Here's Erebos.
There's all sorts of expression, grinder, pros pro, well respected.
There's a Deso Demon. Sigrist is going to pay 1 and go down to 11. He'll draw a card. The joys of an Underworld Connections when you're ahead makes it pretty hard to lose.
Or even behind sometimes.
Well, it'll catch you up. See a Duress, a Pack Rat, Devour Flesh.
And now all from here Mike's trying to do is figuring out a way to maximize the mana he's spending every turn. Balance, drawing cards, and advancing his board.
Of course, no life will be gained from that Devour Flesh because Erebos is in play. Now Erebos is online. Lax says, you know what? Enough is enough. Mike Sigrist is going to win this match over Ari Lax. 2 games to 1. Mono Black Devotion moves on, takes down Black Green Devotion.
Ari knows when he's beat, and he's not catching up from that.
Not catching up in that game. Pack Rat advantage. Erebos already in play. Connections has drawn 2 many extra cards. That is going to do it for Mr. Lax. So Sigrist, again, Grand Prix Richmond top 8 competitor. 4-0 here so far.
Great start.
Yeah,
near his hometown. I mean, a New Englander, born and raised. And again, a player that I have the utmost respect for.
Yeah. And playing, obviously, a really, really good deck. Going with Lifebane Zombie in the main deck instead of Nightveil Spectre, which, is a topic we can certainly discuss. Lifebane Zombie seems to be a pretty good choice right now. It's really good against fringe decks. Also, if people are playing the Junk Constellation deck that BBD played last weekend, or, the Naya big range deck that did well last weekend, or Jund Monsters, which CV has been crushing people with, you got like Lifebane Zombie, but do you expect to play against those green decks more, or do you expect to play against maybe these Black Devotion decks more, where Nightveil Spectre is at its absolute best?
A lot of it also just depends on where do you think you need help in the matchup.
Sure.
You can say not play Nightveil and then devote a lot of your sideboard to beating Mono Black or Esper or whatever the case may be. So it's not even just about which card you'd rather have, but both